And we are live. And this is Mel Rosenberg for the New Books Network, the Children's Literature Channel. And I have a wondrous guest today. Chris Haughton, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're well.
It's so great to see you again. I guess you never expected we'd do two interviews.
I know. Yeah, it's great. two for one.
You know, and I mean, one of us had this splendid idea of doing the interview on the Tate Museum.
Yeah, I think that could have been my idea because I was meeting someone else later on.
It was splendid. We had lots of fun. It's just that nobody could hear us.
Yeah, well, we had a good time. We had cake and coffee, so you know.
And we met Helen.
Yes, and we met Helen, and I've seen her since. Actually, I actually met her in Bologna. So yeah, it's another illustrator friend I've met.
There you go. So Chris, I think that you are one of the incredible people walking the planet. Wonderful author and illustrator, and I'm really honored that you're here with us. And because we've done an interview already, I don't want to go back over the same thing, but I do want you to talk about the 10 minutes that changed your life at Bologna.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a funny story. So, well, will I talk about how I got to Bologna? Is that what you mean?
You can talk about whatever you want. This is your show. But
yeah,
like,
okay.
if based on our previous conversation, I said the seminal 10 minutes that changed your life, in my humble opinion, after meeting you for half an hour, is when you said to yourself, "What the hell am I doing at Bologna Children's Book Fair?"
Yeah. Well, how the hell did I get to Bologna Book Fair was the sort of the main question. But what I did was I was working as an illustrator for about 5 or 6 years, and I had always wanted to make a picture book, but I was just working in kind of commercial illustration, advertising and design and editorial, and for newspapers and magazines mainly. So it was always somebody, I was waiting, someone was going to call me, then I was going to make the illustration. And I kind of wanted to do something more myself. So I just realized that, after many years of like trying to make a book, I realized this wasn't going to happen. I need a deadline. So my studio mate suggested to me, why don't you book tickets to go to Bologna Children's Book Fair, and that would be your deadline. So, you'd be an idiot if you arrived at Bologna without any material. So I thought, great, that's a great idea. And I did that. And then, of course, the weekend before, I was like busy trying to make up a story. But I managed to actually come up with a story. I mean, it wasn't actually kind of how it turned out in the end. This is A Bit Lost book, which is this one.
Oh, this was your first big hit.
And that was my, it turned out really well. But yeah, so I had a kind of a basic idea, and I brought it to Bologna Book Fair, and I was blown away by all of especially, I mean, I spent hardly any time in the kind of English language section. I was just amazed by all of the books all over the world. I mean, especially, Korea and France and Italy, there's some amazing books. And I ended up getting actually published. So in Korean. So
one second, hold on. But
how did I
on the roof of the Tate, I understood that like many novice author illustrators or whatever.
Hold on, Mel. You've got to see this. Look, we have a fox.
Of course you do.
Hold on.
I'll show you my leopard in a minute. Show me your fox.
Oh, have we gone off? What's that? Oh yeah, okay. It's looking okay. Look.
Where do you live? This is your pet fox?
How
Okay,
cool
so
is that?
for our listeners, we've just seen a fox outside of Chris Haughton's window. And Chris, where
There
do
it
you
is.
live?
In central London.
Okay, so let's go back. So the point I'm trying to make, and you keep disturbing me, is
Sorry.
that you came to Bologna and you didn't realize that you have to have meetings set up, you have to know people, you have to have an agenda. You just came there, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I did have some awareness of that, but my preoccupation was just to get this sort of book done. So I didn't really care about the whole meetings thing. I was just trying to, that was my main reason for sort of going to Bologna. But so, and then when I was there in Bologna, I realized, I mean, you need to set up meetings, and really, it's not really the place to go as an illustrator to get your book published. I don't recommend it. I would, it's much better doing research and just literally sending publishers your work. You don't need to go to Bologna. But while I was there, I had a chat with loads of publishers from around the world, and then afterwards I was emailing them, and I managed to get a publishing deal in Korea in Korean. So my first book for 2 years was actually in Korean, and it wasn't in English at all. And then I had to find a way. I mean, it looked like it wasn't going to get translated at all into English or any other languages, because this is the thing. And so then I had to sort of try and figure out how to get it published in English. And
so we teach people, submit to agents, go to conferences, submit to publishers. Don't go to Bologna. You and I went to Bologna. I'm only getting published next month. You're already a world famous author. But there's a message here that I think that, that you made lemons of lemonade or melons of melanade or whatever. That's my inference. That you say, well, while I'm here already, I'll take some business cards from here and there, and why not Korea? And you got published in Korea.
Yeah.
So now I want to segue now to your childhood. You're not really a Londoner. You're Irish.
I'm Irish, yeah. So I was born, grew up in Ireland, went to art college, and studied graphic design. So I was more interested. I mean, I really wanted to just draw all the time. That was basically my whole thing. But I was a bit concerned that, if I was to be an artist, then it doesn't look likely that I would be able to draw all the time. And it looks really difficult to be an artist. So I was told to study, if you want a job, and more likely to get something if you do graphic design. So I did that. But I was never a graphic designer. So I was always just trying to draw things in graphic design designs. And then I was submitting those drawings to newspapers and magazines and anything that would sort of publish them and pay me money. And I thoroughly enjoyed that, actually. I mean, as a way, I mean, I was very lucky. Well, so then, I mean, I realized when I was in Dublin, the smaller the city is, the smaller the network is. And Dublin at the time, and still, it's not a big hub for sort of media, newspapers, magazines, this sort of thing. So I realized very soon on that, you know, the all of the publications were happening in London, and, you know, even Irish editions, it's just, they swap out a few pages, but there's no, you know, it's all London based. So, you know, I actually worked as a graphic designer in a music venue in Dublin for a while. And my job was basically just changing the dates and times and venue on the music posters. And I had to phone up.
Hey, that's not a life for me.
No, that I mean, it was great because I got to go for free to a lot of music things, which was a definite plus. And also I only had to work from 1 to 6 in the afternoon, which suited my lifestyle time very well. So people thought I was crazy to give up that job. Yeah, I mean, ultimately I kind of wanted to do more with the illustration work, and I made the move to London in, I think it was like 2004, 2005, and then I worked for a while in an animation studio, which I was very lucky to work in. It's one of the sort of the top animation studios, and in a very creative way, so that I was working with a lot of directors and designers. And, you know, when you're working alone as an illustrator, you know, you're working alone, and you know, you're trying to figure out how do I draw like this, and how do I get this texture, and oh, maybe I could, you know, paint this bit and do that bit, or maybe I can do this on the computer. Can I do that on the computer? All of these things you're trying to figure out, and the best way. And then I was in this studio with 15 other like illustrators who were all way much better than me and much more experienced. So, I mean, just it was an amazing learning experience because, you know, I just picked up so much, and even just sort of the awareness of, you know, what they were looking at, and, you know, they were talking about different, you know, Russian animators, and oh, who's that? And looking them up, and oh, wow, Yuri Norstein, oh my God, yeah. So it was just a lot of that sort of thing. And also I learned a lot through editing, or you know, about editing in this animation studio, Studio AKA it was called. It still is called. And they, you know, sometimes I got to do some animations, and I got to direct just 2 animations there. But I did it, I think one was coming out as like 3 minutes 20, and another one was coming out as like 2 minutes 40 or something like that. And they said, okay, great. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to cut them down to 1 minute each, and then we're going to do a 30-second version and I think a 20-second version, or a 15-second version or something like that. And I was like, what? You can't, I mean, how? It'd be butchering it. It's, you know, and, you know, then I did it, and then realized that the shorter and punchier one, you know, was way better overall. And I never would have allowed myself to do that to my own work, but because I was an employee, and, you know, I had a boss, and I had to do what, you know, they told me.
Did you have a moment where, because all of this, first of all, I want to summarize a couple of things I tell my students, and you are a epitome of this. The first is to create your own fate. Don't be afraid to move countries, right?
Yeah,
and the second is thinking between boxes. So here you were in the box of the designer, animator, and you had someday an epiphany. Even if you didn't, make it up. You had an epiphany. I want to write children's books. Or did you?
Yeah, well, when I was working as an animator, I didn't. I what I wanted at that time was to not have a job. You know, I was working in this animation studio and it was not, you know, I mean, it was sort of 9 to 9. It was really, you know, it was quite hard work, or 9 to 7 or 8 anyway. And it was quite stressful. Like, you know, it was always just getting jobs out the door and, you know, working late to finish this off. And
Chris, work is stressful.
I don't recommend it. Say that to your students too.
Yeah. Don't work if you don't have to. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
and make money.
Money is the problem then. But you know, so, well, in the end, what happened was I kind of got fired from the animation studio because I couldn't animate. And I didn't really want to animate. So, you know, it was kind of funny that I got hired in the first place, to be perfectly honest. And they were hiring and firing people left, right, and center. It was just, you know, I don't know how I lasted as long as I did.
So it's like, you're out of this frame.
Yeah. So,
sorry.
Well, I am. It was the best thing that could have happened to me, because like I probably would have stayed for, you know, at least a few more years there, and, you know, I might have ended up then sort of doing more into animation. I don't think that would have really suited me. And
anyway, they would have cut your segments down from 30 seconds to 10 seconds to 4 seconds.
They would have butchered everything. It would have been terrible. Yeah. So then I really had to make money, and so I managed to make it as a freelance illustrator, which I couldn't believe I managed to do that. I basically just invented, you know, I didn't have a job. I just thought it was fantastic, you know, just not having to go in to do work and get a pay slip.
Lesson number 3, invent your own job. Okay.
And
but when did you get your epiphany that you wanted to be a children's book writer?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, after a few years, like I said, sort of 6 or 7 years doing sort of illustration, it, you know, it seems like the natural thing to do. I didn't want to be asked to do more things. Like, I wanted to do something for myself. And I always, I mean, it's sort of the ultimate thing as an illustrator to make your own picture book, or have some sort of, you know, create your own stories and stuff. So yeah, I like, as a freelance illustrator who, you know, is just terrified the whole time of, you know, I just wanted to pay rent, and whatever came in the door, you know, I had to manage to do it and get it out. And it that just took all of my time and energy. I didn't have time to, you know, wonder, you know, make up a story about it. You know, I had no time for that. So I had to sort of force myself to do that. And that's where the Bologna story came in. Okay,
so now we're back to Bologna.
Yeah.
And you chose to be your own author rather than to look for an author or a manuscript that you could illustrate. And I think that's a wonderful decision, because your stories are so incredible. And then you come back.
Well, it's a funny one. I mean, I had experience, you know, and I really enjoyed a lot of the work. You know, I was working when I was doing adverts, I was working with copywriters, and I was quite inspired by how, you know, they just come up with a sentence and I have to come up with the sort of picture that goes with it. And, you know, just twisting a few words makes the picture funny, and you know, it was very it's very interesting. And suddenly I was never interested in writing, but then once I realized how you can manipulate an illustration with writing, then I was all over it, and I was like, oh wow. And then I started in my sketchbooks, I started writing things down, you know, if I heard something funny or just, you know, silly things, or, you know, reading a sentence in a book where you think, ah, that would make a beautiful line. And so my sketchbooks became more and more words rather than pictures. And so I didn't really like, I found that more interesting than, and in fact, ever since, the interesting part of it for me now comes from the writing, because I don't know how it will sort of pan out.
That's interesting, because I thought that you have the images and then you write, and you're telling us that you write first and then imagine the images.
Well, I mean,
you can change your mind if you want to, but
yeah, no, what it usually is I have this sort of before and after sequence. And whether that's words or images, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of both, really. There's no differentiation in your head, really. I don't know. But so say, for example, well, I mean, for a bit lost, it's like, you know, the little owl says, oh, my mummy is very big, like this. And then, so that's the before. And then you turn the page and here she is, here's your mummy. And of course, it's not the mum, but it's a very big animal.
you know,
so this sort of thing, this before and after thing, and all of are based on this page turn, which is the craft, I think, of
that's what I wanted to ask you. I'm not going to talk. You just read my mind. So the animation and the copywriting, this led you to become a brilliant page turning creator. I think that's wonderful. That's a great message.
Well, I was just trying to come up with a way of telling a story, but I wasn't a writer. So, and actually the very beginning of my first book, you know, it was killing me. I was like trying to come up with a way to, you know, how does it start? You know, and there's Mummy, is it Mummy Owl and Baby Owl are on the branch and they're nodding off and whatever, something like that. And nothing seemed to work and everything sounded really corny. And then in the end, I just left it blank, and then you turn the little, you know, uh-oh. And I thought, that's fine. You know, that's kind of does what it needs to do. And then we know, and then bump, bump, bump. And so then the owl is on the forest floor. And it's, you know, moving it from here where we're looking at the owl family cozy asleep in the nest to the owl in the middle of a forest lost without the mom. You know, that was the, how do you get the character lost? That, like, visually, that's the sort of the most, the easiest way visually to do it. And it doesn't need the text. So when I realized, it doesn't need the text, then I just, you know, I kind of got away with that. And so in my mind, I felt I'd sort of got away with something. And then this was the thing that I think made the book do quite well, was because it doesn't have too much text, and because a lot of the engaging elements of the story are told through pictures. That means that very young children can understand them, number one. And number two is everyone, like internationally, no matter what language you speak, can understand it as well. So those two things were, that wasn't a conscious decision that I was doing. I was just doing it as an illustrator. How do I tell the story through illustrations?
Incredible. So, and you also, like, you've also spent some time in Asia. You have a sentiment and an understanding a bit of Asian humor and Asian way of life. And so the book is in Korea.
Yeah.
It's doing well in Korea.
It was doing all right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was like a huge bestseller, but it did quite well. And
you know, who knows you in Seoul? I mean, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky to get published at all.
Yeah. Okay. No, but no, it's a splendid book, and since then it's been translated into, I don't know, several dozen languages, right? Am I wrong? 30 or 40 languages.
Yeah, I think it's like
I've stopped counting. And so then what did you do to get it going in the English, which is more spoken in the UK than Korean?
Yes.
And in the States.
I actually went to Bologna again. And so it had been 2 years since I went, since the book had actually come out in Korea, and I thought, oh, this is getting ridiculous. So I thought, well, I could go again and take it around, because then I had a book in Korean.
No, but you had a publisher in the fair.
Yeah. And so I went and did that, and then I actually met an Irish friend, Kevin Waldron, who's a fantastic illustrator, and we met up one evening, and he said, "Oh, you should talk to my publisher, Deirdre McDermott. She'd really like that, So then I went over to the Walker stand, and I spoke to Deirdre, and eventually, yeah, she said, "Oh, we'd like to do this," and that was that. And I actually got my French publisher there as well, Thierry Magny, who is fantastic. That they're one of my favorite publishers in the world. I mean, so are Walker. But yeah, so I was very lucky with that, and I think that was it for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then so I came back, and then I started meeting up with Walker Books, who are based in London, quite regularly, and we changed a few pages for the English edition, and they started selling it in the different languages. They're very good at sort of exporting. A lot of the British publishers they have this sort of export driven thing. They just want to get content and sort of sell it to, this is the sort of business model that Britain do pretty well. And so suddenly it started, I think it went to Finland first, and then Netherlands was and it just went from there. And then my publisher started asking about, so what are you going to do next? And I actually had said, I'd love to do a nonfiction book, and it's going to be for 12-year-olds, and it's going to be da. And my editor was like, no, don't. I mean, we were thinking like owl number 2, like, what happens when she gets lost again, or something like that. And I was like, no, I really want to do this book. This was this book that it was really close to my heart. And my editor said, no. And it was very good advice. She said, this is done well. Other people will, they'll see the book, they'll like it, and then they'll want to have, to buy another one. And so, it was good. And so I did that, and I put my nonfiction thing to the side. And so I did, and that was very difficult to come up with a second picture book idea. I really thought, because I'd actually spent quite a long time working on the owl story, like several years really, back and forth. And it's supposed to be like the difficult second album, you spend years working on this a few tracks and release that, and then people want the second one, and everyone's like, oh,
what do we do now?
So that was really difficult, and I had no idea, and I kept on going back and forth with completely different scenarios.
Chris, well, during these years, okay,
Yeah.
between your first Bologna visit and the publication in Korea, which I'm assuming didn't bring you enough money to survive, you were working at the same time also as a designer, as
a freelance illustrator. I was very lucky in that, actually, because I realized, because a lot of the time what happens is, an illustrator will do a successful book, and then they're either in a full-time job, or they're in a precarious kind of financial situation, and that they have to make the jump where they, publishers are asking them to, oh, can you do a book for us? And with a full-time job you can't do that, so you have to then quit your full-time job. Then you have to sign as many contracts as possible so that you've actually some money coming in, and then I think that waters down the quality of the book. If you're if you've got a bit of a financial strain, then it's not going to be quite as good as if you're not under that pressure. So I was quite lucky in that I had these other illustration jobs coming in, and I could, I didn't need to be doing a second book. I could just keep on doing my illustration, but I wanted to. So I could take my time on it, and I did. It took about 2 years after.
So the next book is Oh No, George.
Oh No, George, yeah.
Which is like all of your books have this voice of Chris Haughton. They have this unique font and the colors that I love so much. And you can just look at one page and say, "Oh, that's Chris." But Oh No, George is a departure from this cuddly little owl who looks here and there to try and find her mummy, to a semi-misbehaving dog whom I love.
Yeah. So that came about because I'd been trying. I had this idea that, well, it was the page turn thing. I thought, there's some sort of calm before the storm, and then you turn the page and there's a terrible mess.
What will George do?
Yeah. Well, at that time there was no
No.
character. There was no particular character involved. It was just a mess. I just thought that would be really funny to have something going on. I'm not sure what. And you turn the page and, oh no, there's a big mess. So I was thinking like accidents happening, like things falling over, being knocked over, this sort of thing. And I couldn't really quite make the story gel. It was quite engaging, those page turns, but it just didn't hold together as a story. And my editor kept on telling me, Chris, you need a main character. This is like, have a look at books, see if there's one without a main character, And I was like, no, this will definitely work. But the accidents are, it's absolutely, it's going to be gold. It's accidents. Who doesn't like watching accidents? Anyway, it just wouldn't work.
But then, how do you have the chutzpah to argue with your editor? That's incredible. Especially because George is such a character. He's like right up there in my pantheon of picture book characters. This is a dog that I'd love to meet.
Yeah,
it's a dog with angst. It's one of the most human dogs in the history of picture books.
Well, a lot of dogs.
I know I should be good.
Have angst. Yeah. I mean, a lot of non-human animals have angst. We all animals have angst. Yeah.
So I want to move forward, but like, did you just find George out of nowhere? Did you have a miscreant dog or something?
Yeah. Well, I realized a lot of the accidents that were happening were caused by a dog or some sort, there was something kind of slightly innocent that, it's funnier if a dog causes the accident, because if a human does, then are they stupid, or are they really, not nice, or what is it? But a dog it's slightly more helpless, and so it just seems natural to sort of have this dog as the character, and that worked well, because then I realized.
Do you remember a moment where you say, "Oh yes, George," or just like evolved somehow?
Yeah, I remember I scribbled it down. I was actually in India at the time, and I for ages I was going. I had meant, like, I was going to go on this sort of long backpacking trip around India, and I wanted to get the story before I went, and I couldn't get it, and because I thought, well, once I go to India, I'll never come to the story, because like, at least here, I have books, and I can go to a museum, and I have a lot of things around me that I thought could sort of prompt to help me on the story. Anyway, I spent months and months and months doing that, and then I went to India, and straight away in India I thought, yeah, just and then it's more funny, it was really just finding the right moment. As I said, it's this before and after thing. So it's like, what will George do? And then you turn the page, and oh no, he's done the thing.
For the viewers who are viewing, can you just show one or two spreads of "Oh no, George"? Hi, Chris. I love all your books, but I have this, as a dog lover, I have this thing for George, and the pastel colors, of course.
George sees something in the kitchen. It's cake. I said it'd be good, George thinks, but I love cake. What will George do? So then the page turn. Oh no, George!
Oh no, George!
So yeah, it continues like that, and what I like to do is sort of, a lot of picture book makers. It's weird. I was just talking to a picture book maker a couple of weeks ago who sort of sent me kind of a draft of their work, and it was all in rhyme, and I totally understand that. And what is the thing with rhyme? Almost half of the books that I see and people are trying to create, they're all in rhyme. Why? Because suddenly when you choose to do rhyme, you've already got a structure, and it's kind of like if you were just to pluck things out of the air and write it down, then it could go anywhere. But with rhyme, you sort of have to stick to something. So it's some sort of constraint. So, but it's a terrible constraint because one, it just, it goes any which way because it's just the rhyme of the words, whatever.
It seems to have worked for Julia Donaldson, though.
Oh, no, I mean, a lot of them, and the rhythm and stuff of the rhyme is also very good. I mean, I'm not dissing, I mean, that's, but the problem with rhyme is, and all publishers say this, it's nearly impossible to translate a lot of the time. And so that really limits your, publishing sort of thing because.
Okay, now listen, we're going to take this to another area because now you're going to have to help me get Julia Donaldson on the show, who will disagree with you. So let's.
Oh yeah, no, I well,
Okay, well, let's move away from that. Let's move away from that.
We can fight it out. Yeah, me and Julia. No.
Right.
No, I mean, I totally.
Yeah, she's not going to fight. I've met her. I've had coffee with her. She's the loveliest lady. Come on.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
And why should you? No, let's move on though. Let's move on.
Okay.
Otherwise, you have a book to write. So that you have like every about 2 years a new book comes out.
Yeah.
and they're wonderful. Sometimes they are like Oh No George, like the Bananas book,
Yeah.
which is like taking George to a whole new level with three monkeys who insist on disobeying their mummy.
Yeah.
Um, grab that book, please.
Oh, yeah.
Can you just grab a banana from that book?
So maybe. So yeah, well, I'll read from it's there's not many words in this. Okay, monkeys, I'm off. Now remember, whatever you do, do not go down to the mango tree. There are tigers down there. It's a pity we can't go down to the mango tree. Yeah, I love mangoes. That is a pity. Maybe we could just look at the mangoes. That'd be okay, right? Any tigers here? No. Any tigers there? No. No tigers anywhere. It's safe. Down, down, down to the trees below. And look. Look. Oh, you probably can't really see.
It says it's safe, but
so anyway,
lurking.
So many mangoes. Oh, look, there's one within reach just over there. But
yeah.
So you have to buy the book to
so Chris, I'm celebrating two things. I'm celebrating your recent book, right, which is the Well Done Mummy Penguin.
Yeah.
But also your career. I get to interview a lot of successful authors and illustrators, and I always wonder, are they really nice people? You know, they write really well. The illustrations are marvelous. Are they really nice? Is this somebody that you say, wow, this is the person that I dream of being behind the craft? And as I've met you, and we've had coffee and cake together, and sat on the roof, you are a splendid human being.
Oh, and well, likewise, Mel. Yeah, no, it's really lovely hanging out.
But there's one thing. One thing. There's a million things. I want to ask you.
There's always a but.
No, but I want to take you down to the mangoes, if I will, or the bananas.
Yeah.
I gave away the. No, everybody run out and buy Chris Haughton's book. That book has no bananas in it. So let's segue now. So you have some of the books are these cuddly books of a baby bear who doesn't want to go to sleep, or an owl boink 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 looks for his mummy, and you've come back to that in 2022 with a lovely book, Well Done Mummy Penguin, where the angst has changed. It's the angst of, oh, mom's in danger, she's run to bring us a fish.
Yeah.
But you have to explain me to this. Maybe this is your yin and your yang, or whatever you say. That you have like an edgy book about a miscreant character, and then you say, "Oh no! I don't. I'm nice. I'm nice. No.
Yeah.
But the George and the Monkeys, I'm going to write a nice book about Mummy Penguin."
Yeah, maybe there's some sort of psychological thing going on there. I don't know. Yeah, I
We didn't talk about the young Chris and his mummy. We'll do that another time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I have a lovely mom, and who is very good with children. Actually, I've seen her. I
no, but did she ever go off on a search to bring home the fish, and little Chris was worried about her coming home?
Well, I think I got lost in a supermarket one time, and I still remember that, and I think that was very traumatizing. So, there's quite a few lost stories. So I think maybe perhaps that it comes from this supermarket trip.
You've told not only to me that it takes you 2 years
Yeah.
to do a book, and of course it shows. But according to my scientific calculations, we are coming close towards a new book.
Well, yes, but it's very different to what you think. It's 140 pages, and it's about communication. It's about kind of a history of communication. So it's something I've been working on in the background for a long time, and it's something
Is this the nonfiction 12-year-old book?
Yeah. So that will be my next book.
Oh wow!
And finally, it will come out, and so I've been sort of working on that in the background as I've been doing a lot of these. I've shelved it for many years at a time, and then come back to it.
Okay, but as I know you must have all of these sketches and fiddling. I write, and I can write a draft of a terrible story in half an hour. You're like an elephant having a baby. 2 years for one story.
I know.
So my question is, Chris, at what stage is the no return? We say this is the baby. The baby is George. The baby is 3 monkeys.
Yeah, well, I've always, ever since my experience doing the second book, I've always tried to finish off, like before I completely finish the current book, I have another one ready to go, so that I'm not flailing around trying to come up with a story, because that's really, it's kind of unproductive, because you don't know what to do. So I mean, I've got several stories.
You have a picture book on the way somewhere.
Oh yeah,
which you don't want to tell my viewers about.
Well, I have a couple of picture books. One is about a big bad wolf, and another one is about this bird who's quite annoying. In fact, they're both, the two characters are very annoying, so I don't know what's going on psychologically now.
No, we've just gone back. We've gone back to George and the monkeys.
Yeah, I was so nice with the penguins that I had it up to here with being nice. I just have to be really annoying.
It's a really lovely book, but some of your fans who like your snarky characters are waiting for this annoying bird to resurface or surface. So good that you have these exasperating animals on your back burner.
Yes, yeah, no, I am. I need a few exasperating animals on my back burner at all times.
So I reserve the right to have you back on the show,
as well as the fox, who is an exasperating character too. I really want to do one about a fox, but I haven't managed to come up with an idea yet.
But isn't it the case that if you want, this is what I also teach. If you want to do fox, you're not going to end up doing fox. It won't be really creative. You have to get away from the fox to get back to the fox.
I know. Well, a lot of my friends actually sort of draw a character, and then they say, oh, I'm going to do something with this character. And so they've already got the character, but they're looking for the story. I can't do that at all. I don't even know how that works. I can't even imagine how that works. I have to come up with a kind of scenario, and then I create the character to fit that scenario. So it's almost like, creating a film idea, and then you do the casting. Like
exactly. I have a great actor. All I need is a script.
Yeah. And this is a great actor, or this actor looks fantastic for the part, but can he act? And then you
how about
you do a test
look
out.
Look at this Pantone. This is a great Pantone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. perfect Pantone for this part. And you know, big flappy ears. This is going to go great. And then you're like, oh, actually, the flappy ears get mixed up with the background. So you go next, you know, and
I'm in love with your color schemes and your the Pantone was not just being facetious. Show us another picture with purples and blues and reds. Oh man.
Well, probably my favorite.
And to those of you who are listening to the NBN podcast, run out and buy all of Chris Haughton's books. They are brilliant.
Very good advice there.
And if you meet him at the Tate, he will sign them for you.
What's that?
If you meet him at the Tate Modern, he will sign them for you.
I will. I certainly will. Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to meeting you all on the roof of the Tate. That'll be fun.
With Helen.
This is one of my favorite pages for the colors. So it's the story of these sort of 4 kind of hunter characters who, well, 3 of them are trying to catch the birds, and the littlest one just wants to be friends. So this is the littlest one feeding the birds.
Incredible.
So that's probably the most color I could fit in a page.
Chris, they're going to throw us off the air in a few minutes.
Okay.
We have not talked about your wonderful agent, Debbie Bebo, who's been on the show. A couple of words about Debbie.
Yeah, she's absolutely brilliant, and we have a very similar I don't know, aesthetic and whole attitude. Really, it's really fun hanging out with her, and she has an amazing look at her website, debbiebebo.com. Some of my favorite artists there, and loads of artists that I didn't know, but I really love their work through finding it them on her website.
She is terrific. So we're near the end of the wonderful interview with Chris Haughton about his. Well, we talked more about your life and craft than about your wonderful new book. So well done, Mummy Penguin, out last year, available everywhere that penguins are sold. And
there's someone at the door. Hold on a second. Okay, it's going to leave it there.
or hang out with the fox.
Or yeah, the fox also knocks on the door.
If it's somebody you don't like somebody wants to sell you something, say, can you go around back? Go around back for a few minutes.
Yeah, we don't have it's a block of flats, so they'll be lost.
No, but I mean, there's a story here, you know, that the people come to sell you things and you send them behind the house to your pet leopard. But we've just told everybody. So is there anything I haven't asked you?
Oh, there's loads you haven't asked me.
Oh, well, great. Then let's have another interview. Unfortunately, the sound has been spectacular. You've been spectacular, and this one is a shoot. So, Chris Haughton, on behalf of children all over the world, and people who love to read me. And so many millions of others who love to read your sparkling stories. It's been great having you on the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network, and I'm Mel Rosenberg, wishing everybody a wonderful week. And Chris, thanks so much. It was great.
Pleasure, Mel. Yeah, see you in London next time. And yeah, so it's always
be careful of what you wish for.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.